we back up. Understand me? We back up. Understand me? We back up.
Noel Nation, welcome into another episode of the Renegade Rundown. This thing started out as 4 potential commits, and then James Williams popped like an hour before we went live. And just in the last few moments, our guy Gunner, the Vandy offensive tackle, one of the guys, like, I don't know about you, Deshawn, this is one of the absolute guys that was like, this would be such a huge get. I mean, you see him go toe-to-toe with these teams in the SEC, end up above 500 and everything they did over there, beat Alabama, all the things. Like, yeah. 6'5", 330, I believe, is his measurables. You got a legit human being over there at left tackle. And, of course, James Williams, 6'6", 260. Like, he's a perfect kind of crossover of potential and proven production. He's got 7.5 sacks in like 16 games. It just gets better and better and better. So you can see him really taking a step forward. He's got 2 years in Tallahassee. So how fired up are you about these last 2 commits? And, we got 2 more to talk about that, another one that kind of rings true exactly to how I kind of explained our guy James Williams on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, first of all, I'm going to start with Gunner, even though he just recently committed. But with that is significant in that you have a legitimate left tackle. Size-wise, production-wise, you look at his PFF grades, how many starts he has, but not just the number of starts. It's the starts and who he's had to face across from him in the conference that he's been in, and also his performance. Definitely a part of the reason why Vanderbilt had a nice season this year. On James Williams' sack, it was all expected with Knighton, but you can never count your eggs before they hatch with this portal stuff, man, because anybody can swoop in and entice. But we all know the documented conversations and the things he shared about how he felt about pot roast. And it was an expected thing, but we had to let the process play out. And I'm excited for both sides. The trenches are getting taken care of, and they're addressing what the glaring needs are.
Yeah, man. Look, nothing's guaranteed in this day and age. He was the number 4 defensive end on the board, number 20 overall portal prospect. And when you're 2-10, even with all the things that go together, it's tough to get some of these guys. But, yeah, he was a guy. We talked about it early. He was interviewed and asked about pot roast and what he meant to him, of course, Terrence Knighton. And, he started, using analogies and metaphors, talking about him being a father figure in his life. And he was like, you know what? No, forget that. Like, he's legitimately – I consider him to be my father in life. Like, he's that close to me and everything. So, yeah, this one was a slam dunk. But to get it done and then to have Gunner follow it up so quickly behind it is pretty special. Like, we talked about all offseason where we went wrong last year. And I was sold on it. I thought we had enough of a backbone on our high school recruiting that had built up over the years that we were going to be all right. We invested in the future in the portal. We got a lot of these redshirt freshmen, sophomores from Alabama, from Georgia. They were all world recruits. I think there was 10 or 11 blue chips. This year we needed to go and just get production, proven production. And a lot of those names, when you hear them, it's not real, shiny. They aren't the biggest names, but the names that you could go get are going to be your James Williams, Deuce Robinson, who we'll talk about later. You'll possibly have a chance for. The Casey Concepciones of the world. You took a swing at it. You see how those turn out. You're probably not going to be able to get that kid here. But to be able to get Daryl Jackson back, I guess before we move on to O-line and really get into Gunner and the rest of the other targets that are possibly going to commit any day now, to get Daryl Jackson locked in, and now at that nose tackle, which I believe is a way better position for him than it was just in that 4-2-5 where he's just eating up double teams all the time in the run game and getting pushed back. Like, to get him to be able to line up over a center at 6'6", 300 whatever pounds he is, and then to put James right there to have, because we didn't have that 260, 270 pound end on the roster, period, kind of to fit this defense. So to get James Williams in here and a guy who again, top 20 guy in the portal. I think he could start on most programs in the country. You plug those two pieces in, now you've got one more to kind of fill in. And I guarantee you, like, we're looking at Daniel Lyons as somebody who could possibly step up and get better. I'm sure he could play that nose tackle, but he could probably slide over and play that other end. Or, I think Pot Roast has already mentioned that Daryl Jackson could do that as well. But I guess just how big is it to have those two keystone positions kind of locked down? You've got all conference type level players that you're going to be able to plug in there on this defensive line in the 3-3-5.
It's going to be interesting because if you watch things that Tony White has done with the defense and then actually what Knighton has done, don't be surprised to see one end be over 300 plus pounds. He kind of did that at Nebraska. I wouldn't. That's what he was alluding to when you talk about Jackson sliding out to that 3 technique, playing that strong side end. In a 3-3-5, you're looking for your ends to most likely be 260, like you said, or plus 280, 290. So you don't necessarily have to have. You're not going to have a 250-pound guy there. But the plus about it is it's just a big positive, and Jackson coming back gives you some stability there, where you're going to have issues with depth. You still have issues there, but it's not as bad as it would be, especially with the formation and the system that you're running. Your defensive line or defensive tackle requirement won't require such, a multitude of depth. If you got a good rotation of 3 or 4 guys there, if not, 2 as far, and then your depth goes down, you can go about 4 deep there, 5 deep. That's not bad. But then your ends, you can rotate. It just depends on the front, and how you shift that around. But I'm really excited about the possibilities. And what's the kid that we got on signing day out of the junior college ranks? He's about 280, so he could play that 3 tech also.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I just feel like, tell me if I'm wrong, like James Williams is better than any DN we had on the roster last year, like bar none. And I think if you look at kind of to your point, that defensive end position that was Byron Turner, that was Patrick Payton previously, doesn't even exist. Like, you don't have to field that. And we had a little bit, we got Kevin Wynn to come in. We already talked about Daniel Lyons, Daryl Jackson. We were better on the inside, and kind of those guys can play that strong side end. Like Lyons, Daryl Jackson, and James Williams on the front. Oh my gosh! With whoever you decide to put in that jack or outside linebacker role, whatever they call it, that can be a lot of fun. We've also talked a lot on here, or maybe just me. I brought it up a bunch of times. Just watching these games this year, though. Like, I get it. People are really down on Pat Payton. He was not a pass rusher at all. Could not get off blocks all year. But the few times that I felt like he made a contribution or flashed or made any of his plays was when they were reading him on his own read and they just turned him loose so he could run up the field and make the tackle. Or it was one of the few times Adam Fuller would bring him inside and the offensive line would get confused and he could shoot a gap. So curious to see if he can stick around, and maybe the reason he is sticking around is that he's been sold on a future at outside linebacker where he could probably make a few plays, as opposed to somebody like Marvin Jones Jr. who just, they're not about that life. And that's, probably why he hit the portal as soon as the 3-3-5 came about.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned some things about Marvin before, that was some things that issues are necessarily fit issues at Georgia. They run some of the similar schemes and asking him to do certain things. Maybe it wasn't the perfect fit for him. So, I'm not saying he couldn't have done it, but, just moving along, thinking about 2 names I'll throw out, George, that we didn't mention, Denaz White and Jamari Flagg. Those are 2 other names on the D tackles that are massive individuals. I think Denaz was upward of 335, 340 almost coming in. This is a big spring, winter workout conditioning for the both of them, because they can play key to raising the floor of your depth at the D tackle position, along with your youth with Wynn and Sampson and Lyons. So, that's a good steady rotation. I would say probably add 1 or 2 more pieces as far as your interior. It's the edges that they have to get, but this is really, really a good start, a real good start.
No doubt about it. I couldn't be fired up. I see somebody mention Lee Hunter in the chat. No, that one's long gone. We got a pretty good list of guys that were in the kind of initial top targets that Florida State talked to and offered and things of that nature. He's one of them. He's gone to Texas Tech. Terrence Carter Jr., a tight end that FSU was over after early. Mike Norvell had compared him to Jaheim Bell. That's another one that's gone to Texas Tech. Mario Craven, I think he ended up going to Mississippi State with our guy Luke.
Yeah.
So he's off the board. Casey Concepcion, they kind of got in on him early, a flashy name. That one, I think he's pretty much out of it now. He's visiting like Miami and Texas A&M this week.
Okay.
But for both of these guys, in both Mario Craven and Casey Concepcion, like they've got a guy who I think is better in Omega Blake from Charlotte on campus right now. So we'll see if any crystal balls drop, if they can get him to land. But that would be a huge pickup. And as I mentioned earlier, Deuce Robinson, the legacy from USC. The second he hit the portal, we were on top of it. I talked about it on here on the Voice of College Football. Again, it's going to be hard to get these top 10, top 20 recruits without some kind of like legit relationship or in there. And it's going to be really scary to waste too much time. And you've seen like with Lee Hunter, with Concepcion, with Terrence Carter, like they're not going to get into a bidding war with Texas Tech this year and risk somebody that's wanting to, kind of play that game down to the wire. But somebody like Deuce, who you have a great connection through his father and everything else, somebody like, who's the other one? The one we just landed, James Williams, these type of guys, those are the guys that you can afford to kind of go all in on and use the relationships. And I think they kind of played it perfectly. Deuce Robinson obviously isn't a done deal. I think it was Brendan Sinone that put a crystal ball in for him. But from the time we first talked about it, I was like asking James, do they offer him? Okay, when we find out, yes, they are interested. They've contacted. Then we find out there's an offer. Then, okay, well, yeah, he is going to visit. It looked like when he first showed up at Arizona State for a second, like on 247, like 3 or 4 days ago, they put 99.999% to Arizona State. All of a sudden, I'm not sure, is he supposed to be here tomorrow? There's been so much information coming in. It's hard to keep up with everything, but looks like we have a legit shot with him. If you could do that on the offensive side of the ball, man, I mean, you really get something rolling. And I'll let you comment on Deuce and that whole situation. We can get into the O-line guys.
As far as Deuce, I would always speak to the fit. If you pay attention to the receivers that they've gone after, as far as the specifics to Gus's offense, Deuce fits the narrative of the trees. There's a lot of questions to Thomas Castellanos' ability to throw the football. It's well documented and amongst the fan base and the comments that we've made. But if you got guys at 6'6", 6'7", standing out there, all you gotta do is toss it up. I mean, basically, if you still got Elijah Moore at 6'5", you didn't have a lot of tall receivers as it is. You lost a lot. So you add Scott. If you get Deuce, that's two guys that are 6'5", 6'6", and up, along with Elijah being 6'4". And then you continue, and then you got other receivers that are still on the roster that can be those, fit that jet sweep, fly sweep, intermediate RPO kind of screen kind of wide receiver type. I just think Deuce fits that fits that. And he's also listed as, he's like a hybrid. So he can play outside, but he can also line up like an you're basically like a tight end, basically, a flex tight end. That's what I was trying to get to. He can work that long catch radius, big catch radius. You basically just have two guys that are red zone threats if you add him.
Yeah. I mean, you heard the coaches talking about they want their wide receivers to block, be just as into blocking as they are, running routes. And every coach says that. But with Gus and Herb Hand, they really mean that. Like, we talked, I think we're on a space, and I mentioned Sammy Coates the other day, like these big guys that could, Kelvin Benjamin is a guy they didn't have him at Auburn, but that's a guy that Gus would have loved to get his hands on. And he fits that mold. He's a freak athlete. He plays baseball. Peter Shields says Deuce pops. Dominic Robinson, Noel Legend, says they fly in Thursday. So not tomorrow, but the next day they'll be in town. So, yeah, let's hope they can get him in town and not let him leave. That's the one thing that I think this staff kind of lost sight of a little bit last year, or maybe weren't willing to play the game enough with certain guys. But in 22 and 23, when we had our success, and now we're seeing it now, pretty much when you get a guy on campus, like he's either going to commit while he's there or like within 24 hours of leaving, or, yeah, it's going to be one of those situations, like I said, you don't really want to be in. But, yeah, Gunner, the kid from Vandy, man, like, I mean, I'm drooling over this one. It's been so long since we've had a legitimate you said it earlier, left tackle. We thought Darius Washington was going to be that this year, and whether it was coaching or he was hurt, whatever the case may be, it just wasn't. And there's been so many before him that we've got hyped for. Like Rob Scott showed such promise as a freshman, but, then wasn't able to kind of continue to get better because he's constantly hurt. So, yeah. I guess do your final thing on Gunner, and then we can get into the rest of the guys because there's another 3 or 4 offensive linemen, the majority of them from UCF, that we're after getting that I think we get at least 2 or 3 of them.
Only thing I add with Gunner is he's a road grader. Perfect fit for what we know Gus's offense is. Running the football. He said it in the press conference. We're gonna run the ball downhill. Gunner's perfect for that. Like I said, his PFF is good. He is just that. He doesn't give up a lot of sacks as far as in his pass protection. But the biggest thing about it is he is a excellent run blocker. And at 330 pounds, legitimate left tackle, it's something you haven't had, at that position. I mean, you had Robert Scott, but we know his injury history with he in Washington. So, you had tackles that were legitimately that size, that you're still trying to get development for some of the younger and the underclassmen. So he gives you a stopgap there and a perfect stopgap to fit. And it's probably the best tackle you've had. I mean, probably since legitimate size-wise out of the portal since was it Bless Harris. Bless was solid as a pass protector, but you get in a guy that can do both in gut.
And again, to contrast what we did last year, even we're getting guys, there's no projection. We're getting guys that they have film doing it at an elite level, starters. And yeah, couldn't be more pumped for Gunner and James, obviously. But the other guys, Addison Nichols, I think he finished his visit up, but he might still be on campus. Another interior offensive lineman is he from UCF?
Which one?
Addison Nichols?
No, he's the Arkansas.
Arkansas, that's right. What do you think about him? You think we got a real shot with him? He wasn't one of the big names early on, but as soon as he hit, Florida State got in on him and got him to campus fast.
I mean, it's basically your guess is good as mine. He did come on his visit, so there's a possibility there. We know. I like his game. He's being coached by an offensive line guy at Arkansas, and the more you need not only bodies, but you need productive bodies. He has snaps and he has production, so that's the biggest thing. You can't get no worse than where we were this past season. So it's an improvement, and he's not a bad player.
Yeah. Speaking of that, the next name, a guy that I thought all the arrows and tea leaves and everything, what I heard was like he was a slam dunk, just like James Williams kind of, is from UCF. Their starting center, Caden Kittle. It's been kind of quiet. He's kept his business kind of. He hasn't been flashy, but he's on campus. No crystal balls in yet, but that's one that same as the tackle situation and getting him in was so good. Man, it would sure be nice to be able to know, you know exactly who your center is, and they can build the rest of the line around that guy. Any thoughts on Kittle?
That's the center from UCF, I believe. We need a center. I would say that. Andre Otto still needs some development time, which I think he's going to get it with what he has at Herb Hand. I would say, yeah. I think we get him. I definitely like him. I like, what's the other tackle? It's another tackle that's been crystal ball from UCF.
Adrian Medley, is he the other tackle?
I believe so.
Because he's another one that he wasn't on the radar. I mean, he was on the radar because we literally knew we might get a shot at the whole O-line. But he just hit yesterday, I think, and then they immediately got him on campus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like him. I'm just at the point where, man, we're just at a point where we're so far now, man, anything is an improvement. And without a doubt, UCF's offensive line was better. So anything we get from there, it's an improvement from where we were, and it's a starting point, and you just continue to build. Now I
I'm
ask
gonna
you a
pop out
question.
for a second and go grab some guests out of the green room. So
Okay.
if you got anything on your mind, wherever you want to go with it, give them a rant or whatever, and I'll be right back with some guests.
Well, I don't really have the huge rant, but I'll share. I would share with our viewers, just make sure that we always put things in perspective. And the perfect thing to say about things here is it looks like the narrative and the play here is simple and obvious that Mike is going for a quick transitional type of roster build. Can't afford to really take a gap where we are trying to get into 26. He's trying to go win now. So I would say that look at the portal as fit more than name. Everything that it is in the portal, we don't necessarily need. You got to find fit for the scheme on defense, fit for the scheme on offense. So I've already mentioned that they're going for big, tall wide receivers. When you got a 5'11" per se quarterback, you're going to need somebody to be able to catch those, him throwing the ball high. You need guys that can high point the ball. That's what they're going for. If you look at what they're doing offensively, Gus has already said, run downhill. So they're trying to get road grading type of offensive linemen that can push straight downhill to open up for the. You expect to see the type of receivers that they do go after. The Omega Blake type kid is a field stretcher. He's a guy that's going to go vertical. Like I said, Deuce Robinson, red zone threat. Castellanos fits with the quarterback run game and being able to be mobile. More. I see Champ 99 said more like 5'9". But if he fits it, because you're looking at the situation where
Let's just
we're
go
running
5'10". I've seen it reported 5'11".
Yeah,
I've seen 5'9". Let's give him 5'10", okay?
Yeah.
Meet him in the middle on that.
But I look at it as it's a positive because what Mike is trying to do and what they're trying to do is make it a seamless fit. So you get Gus. That means the terminology. Yeah, I actually do. It's not necessarily rushed in the situation of you had to take what you could get coming off of 2-10. You took a quarterback that is familiar with the offensive scheme because he was already in it for a year. He fits it athletically for what Gus wants to be done. You could have said Caden Salter, which I was. I'm not going to sit and act like I was pro Thomas Castellanos. I was more Caden Salter, but you would have probably had to dump a little bit more cash into that area, and we don't necessarily know how that long-term fit or that short-term fit would have worked as far as picking up the offense. That's what I'm saying, is they have to pick up the offense, and you have to get guys that can move and understand it fast. We can throw the names out of the Washington. You're talking about Mateer. That was not even a possibility. He's an air raid quarterback. He would have fit. He fits perfectly with an air raid scheme. So that's why he's most likely going to end up with an air raid system. That fits, and that goes exactly to what I was saying. You're looking for fit and relationships. They're not going to just get a square peg and try to stick it into a round hole. It's not going to work. That's what happened last year. We took too many square pegs and not enough guys that fit the system. You're taking guys from Nebraska because what? The transition to the 3-3-5 will be a lot less of a struggle for certain players if you got enough guys that know the defense to be able to teach it to their teammates. Offensively, it's the same thing. If you bring in some linemen that are familiar with the downhill scheme, inside blocking type scheme that Gus is going to run, it helps to help convert and teach the other linemen that are not familiar with the scheme. Now, the terminology is going to be very similar because Gus's offense, basically, Mike runs the same thing. Herb Hand, as he shared in his press conference, he's known Mike for over 20 years. They work together. I see someone mentioning Micah Hill Green. I don't know. He's scheduled to visit Alabama, so I'm not really sure about that one just yet.
I've been so many rounds with that dude. If something pops off, I'll start reporting on it. For now,
so as of now,
that's like Kevin Coleman territory.
Yeah. The Nebraska D-line, Bobby Davis says, I heard we lost one Nebraska D-lineman to Texas Tech. No, that was UCF. That was Lee Hunter. And we didn't necessarily lose him. It's not a lose. You can't lose what you didn't necessarily have.
Right.
And I mean, it made it evident with Dale Jackson also returning. It kind of, what you would say, kind of quells it a little bit, kind of, that the blow is not as hard. Now, it's a blow to the depth, but I would say it's not that big of a deal. You still got guys, and remember, people, we still got another portal. There's another additional portal later after the spring, so everything doesn't need to be grabbed right now. You just need to get the right pieces and not the best, quote unquote, pieces that you think you need immediately. Because everything we grabbed last year immediately did not work. It just didn't work together. It didn't gel.
Yeah, and look, last year they didn't really have a plan, and this is like from the outset, like how it ended up coming together. That's the part that I liked about TC. I think this thing was probably done before he hit the portal for Gus, like accepted the job. I think it was just such a slam dunk. I think if you went for Salter and say you're still recruiting him and you're going back and forth with other guys, whoever the case may be, I think the biggest thing was just having a vision to sell to the rest of the transfers. Yeah. And that's why it was so big to get Gus in here, get Herb Hand done before the portal really got going. And you're able to, like, when they get these offensive line in there, when they get Deuce Robinson in here, they're able to say, look, this is exactly what we're going to do. This is the quarterback we got. You know, throw that 24 tape out of Thomas Castellanos. Like, we all know it happened, but go look at the 23 tape when Halfley was there and let him play to his abilities. Like, you know, and I get it. And it's all fair criticisms. Bryant McFadden pointed out, like, all the things, you know, the kind of soft factors of him not finishing the season, et cetera, et cetera. But I really put a lot of stock into, like, the whole history of Bill O'Brien and Jalen Milroe. But all that aside, whatever you want to think, you chop his arm off as a running back in this offense, it's going to be it'd probably be a top 30 offense just like that. If he can connect the balls and he doesn't throw interceptions and things of that nature, which he'll probably have picks, don't get me wrong. But I just, outside of that pro style system and what they're going to have him do, throwing into one-on-one situations and scheming guys open, actually run some screens and things that work where you're not throwing into blocks that are blown up and there's 3 defenders and everything like that. I think you'll be able to, like, make some magic, but who knows? We'll see. But at least they have a plan, and they've got a good offensive line all started. People keep asking about the Gaber guy. Yeah, he's gone. That's another guy that's off the list. That one, I think we might have talked about that one on the last show. The next guy is Marcellus Marshall, another UCF guy. I thought he was going to be a slam dunk, but he's one of these guys that visited quick and he's been off. He's gone. Have you heard anything there?
No, I haven't. It's the same thing. I've heard the same thing. You know, it's just a process. We'll have to wait and see. I haven't heard anything more on him right now, though.
Yeah, Category 5 makes a good point. This is what I was kind of thinking about the spring portal and it being for playoff teams. Seems like, man, this is crazy. We talked about this a lot before the season ended. Because, you know, for one reason, we're tired of talking about how bad FSU sucked, but we wanted to talk some solutions. Like, with this early signing date being whatever, December 4th or December 5th, whatever it is, and then the portal opens on the 9th, like, they just finished their title games. They're getting ready for a playoff that starts in a couple weeks. All this stuff going on. Like, you've got to use that month it's less than a month now, I'm sure, but you've got to use that time to game plan or you're going to get your ass beat. Like, the fact they got to try to put together a portal class that's only 20 days and it's over, like, it's nuts. It's really, like, you look at a Texas Tech who's not in the freaking playoff and look what they're able to do. Like, they're doing some amazing shit over there with their money they got, which is, you know, touche to them. Good for them. You know, they're still an upward track. But, hey, that's something FSU this time next year. Think about it. If we win 8 games, whatever, 9 games, don't, you know, on the edge of the playoff or whatever, don't get in. You're a ranked team possibly, we will be able to fundraise out the ass and have $30 million and who knows what you can do. And you can really change your, you know, fortunes in a couple of years. High school recruiting, of course, it goes along with that and everything else. But, man, if you went back and I, you know, would have told you a month ago who we would have flipped on National Signing Day, who we would have retained, who we would have got locked in this early in the portal, and who we think we're going to get. We got crystal balled another tackle, you know, one of the top wide receivers in the portal. Like, you'd be pretty happy right now, huh? Or back then?
Yeah, I am. I mean, going back to the signing day, getting Boggs was huge. That was a huge pickup. You still got a young receiving room as it is now. And then you look at the portal, and it's not only Deuce. You got Kendrick Law. And then as you mentioned, the Omega fellow.
Oh yeah, what do you think about him? I was meaning to bring him up, just hadn't got to the wide
Kendrick
receiver
Law?
yet.
Are you talking about Kendrick Law or Omega?
He's more of a potential for Kendrick Law, right? Not much production, but a freak athlete.
Yeah, I think Omega's fits more of that narrative.
Omega has some production, right?
No, actually, no, he didn't get 1,000 yards. Omega's production was pretty much boiled down to maybe 3 or 4 games. We did a little deep dive in the space the other night, and it was brought up, and he had like 180 something in one game, and 100. He kind of got all his yards in a pattern of maybe 3 or 4 games. That's it. But he does have wheels. He can stretch the field. It's like I said, it's about fit and what they're asking to do as far as fitting to strength. So, we've seen receivers come in and not have a huge amount of production, but if they fit the system and how you can utilize what they can do, I think that's what we're looking at in that situation with Omega, with his overall production. As far as Kendrick Law, it's kind of been up and down with him also, but the biggest thing with him is big catch kind of guy. He's able to move the chains, a little versatile, a little bit more of your stocky kind of wide receiver that can definitely move the chains, physical. I mean, I like him for what they would ask him to do. Kind of similar to what they want to do with Omega, but I don't think he's as fast, being able to stretch the field, but he would definitely be a chain mover for you, more of a consistent hands guy. And, it's between he and Deuce that I would say could be instantly your number one coming in the door if you get their commitment.
I must have got him mixed up because I could have swore he only played in like 2 games and like 3 games the year before. I must have him mixed up with another guy.
Let me see. I'll make sure that I have that right myself.
There's so many names, guys. Like it's like, and it's constantly evolving. So, I have them all completely mixed up. Randy Pittman Jr. is another guy that we expected that might pop early, and it wasn't something that people were really big on, like really sweating. But kind of with these other tight ends, Jaden Platt already off the board. We just mentioned another tight end, Terrence Carter Jr. off the board earlier. All of a sudden, maybe they focus in on him. It'd be nice to get him in here, at least one more tight end.
I mean, there'd be another person, like I mentioned, it'd be a seamless glove. He knows the system. He's versatile. I think Gus used him as a blocking tight end, blocking back. He could run the ball also like a fullback and catch the ball. He's from the Panama City area? Is it Panama City the area he's from? He was once committed to us also. So there's some familiarity from the head coach and then the transitional staff that's on staff now. Definitely familiarity. So I could see where he could be a fit. Losing Carter does hurt, but what you're asking to do in Gus's offense, if anybody remembers, he's going to utilize those tight ends to block. They're going to primarily be blockers first, and then you have a role. But you see how Mike
coming back.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's not really a big difference from what Mike did. And what Mike has done, he's had a tight end for this specific role, a tight end for this specific role, and then a tight end for this specific role. That's basically what he's doing. And then not forgetting, you still have Landon Thomas. So, he'll be a sophomore. So, you're bringing in Biscuit. You got Landon. You get one more tight end to go along with 1 or 2 more tight ends. You're going to need another blocker maybe, and then a versatile tight end that can run the ball and do a Swiss Army knife, basically, in Gus's offense. Gus will use 3 or 4 tight ends, but one of them is primarily going to be like a fullback.
Sorry, my dog's making a bunch of noise as usual. But yeah, I conclude I can't talk. Everything you said, I agree with there, brother. But the other guy that's crystal ball, I don't know if we mentioned him in passing. But you mentioned the one guy being from Panama City. I'm pretty sure Adrian Medley's from Pensacola, another one of these UCF guys. He's the tackle that's crystal ball to us. Just hit the portal. Like he was contemplating it, decided to hit, and immediately they got him on campus. Bam, that was bookend your tackles, which would be huge. And, these guys that are at UCF, like it's such a seamless transition. I mean, they're only moving, a couple hours to the west, northwest, whatever you want to call it. And for a kid that's already from Panama City or from Pensacola, It really makes sense. So it's going to be fun to see where they go with this thing. And it's crazy. People are still hitting every day. It's like keeps going. Michael Vick is taking the head coaching job at Norfolk State. That's pretty cool. Hopefully it goes the Dion route and not the Ed Reed route.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been coaching, but I've always been a big fan of his. I mean, we all were growing up seeing him run around out there and dominate.
That Tidewater area, it's going to be real interesting for people to go up in there and try to get players now. I know Norfolk State is a smaller school, but him being able to keep a lot of those kids in that area will be huge. But if I can speak on something, George, I see Grillmaster said something. Could Amari Williams fit the tight end fullback role? I believe they're moving Amari back to the defensive side of the ball. That's what's been mentioned right now. Is we have to wait and see. But that's what I heard is a possibility that he moves back to the defensive side. They kind of moved him to the offensive side out of necessity, two out of just seeing his athletic ability. But I think the goal was always for him to be a defensive end, linebacker, rush kind of player. So I would expect to see more development on that side of the ball for him.
Yeah, they're definitely going to give him a look. I wouldn't even if he went to play D end. And maybe a bigger role than what DJ Lundy kind of did. I could definitely still see him getting in and playing tight end. We'll see. He is super talented. But I think it probably more up to kind of what the rest of the guys do to step up in the tight end room and how he hacks it. But it's pretty awesome to have a player like that is such an elite athlete. You can see him do it on both sides of the ball. The fact he didn't get seriously injured in that awkward collision on that long catch he had, I thought he snapped his leg in half. It was the craziest looking play. It's a miracle he's all right, but yeah, dude's a stud. We'll be fine at tight end for sure.
That's what's up, man. I'm really excited, man. I'm really excited. I think these next few days are going to be quite interesting for the fan base. If you've been on the timeline, everyone knows that there's a lot of impatience and a lot.
What do you think of old Devin Rispris coming back on?
Oh, I like that hire. Tally guy, definitely. He's learning the recruiting game on that level, as far as being at the P5 level. Was at FAMU, everyone knows. Press is a Tally guy. I think that's going to really help with the area and then recruiting overall. Just relationships, because that's what that's the sole thing that he's going to be about: building relationships, continuing relationships, being relatable to these athletes today. Great recruiter. You're right, Boxing Talk, Dante. He's a great recruiter, great relationship type guy. Really played some parts to some players that Colorado got, good relationships. I think he learned a lot out there from Dion in Colorado, and he's coming home, and he's very excited. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him move. He moved along with Harris. I read something in the chat that were wondering about Harris. There's some concerns about him at the wide receiver position, coaching it. He has some experience there. Most of his experience, being honest, is being a running back coach, but he has been a coach at the P5 and division, high level. And he's got in performance, in production. That's the biggest thing. And then the biggest thing he brings to the table is just like Press. It's relationships and recruiting. You guys want an open door to the South Florida area? He's one of those guys that's going to get you down there, get you into those living rooms where you're not sitting here knocking on the door or with a damn birthday cake in your hand looking stupid. His name is respected. His dad's name is respected down there. So you get guys that can get you in the North Florida, Central Florida, and get you in the South Florida in those living rooms. I'm not saying Mike can't recruit, but sometimes certain relationships just don't always work. He can close it. If he can show he can be a closer, that's good. But he got guys in here that can get into those areas that have and can build more relationships. That's what's key.
Yeah, man. Look, we talked about it, and I made a tweet yesterday or today, I can't remember, but I said, look, it's pretty wild. Mike did that press conference. He said, look, we're going to get this thing fixed now. It's not going to be a drawn out, little by little. We're going to do this. People, not going to be worried about handing over play calling. We're not going to be worried about, can we fire this guy, that guy? Are we going to argue with this kid over NIL? No, Like, we're going to have the exit meetings. We're going to get this stuff fixed now, and we're going to compete next year. Big words, and guys, look, he's got to win next year. He's got to have a winning team. He's got to go to a bowl. That's the minimum for him to get the next year and get things going. Who knows? If it goes 6-6, maybe there's a conversation. But I think you guys understand what I mean. Well, he's done it. He's lived up to these words. Jen went on an epic rant, supporting every person out there about, the people that donate as boosters, about Zen, all these things, because we love FSU. But at the same time, it's like, you're paying for all these players. The results aren't there. It's hard to, you want people to ask to do stuff. You're going to have to make some changes, give us a faith. Well, we find out, okay, well, he's going to donate. He's restructured this year of his contract. He's going to give $4.5 million to build an initiative. To the confusion of some people out there, it isn't going straight to battles and to paid players. That's not how it works. But what it is doing is open up opportunities and doing great things for the boosters and programs to get more money for when it goes to collective bargaining, and the money's going to happen to come from the school. And that's like a year away. This isn't like some far away into the future thing. This is a big thing that they're going to have a hard time, on top of paying NIL, all the things. So yeah, it was really good to have him donate that. And it's a prove it deal. Basically, after this year, it goes back to regular. Well, yeah, if you prove yourself, then it's on like a pot of neck bones. We're all in on Mike Norvell. We're going to compete for a championship in 2026. But if not, you took the pay cut, and now it's whatever. You're going back to the buyout number, or, doing litigation, however that ends up coming out to be. But back to the solutions. We've already mentioned he's giving back the $4.5 million. He got Gus Malzahn in here. He got Tony White in here immediately. He focused on the most important two guys to get in here. Pot Roast was the third one to salvage that high school recruiting class. You end up flipping like 7 guys on signing day and the next day to just have an epic close compared to anything you've done in the past. It's not even your worst portal class after, or your best high school class after going 2-10. You finish like 4 to 5, 6 spots behind Miami, depending on 3 or wherever you look at. And they just signed a bunch more 3-stars, I think, again, kind of this year. It's not like they signed a much more blue chips than you. Like, the average is very close. They're going to be hard pressed to pass us in the composite. For all the trash talk about, oh, Mike's coming off 10 and 13 wins and can't do this and that. Miami does the same thing with their best year. All of a sudden, they drop 10 spots in the recruiting. How does that happen if they've been killing it with the development in these top 5 classes? They were really top 5 classes. But I digress. That's not the subject. The subject is how Mike Norvell has put this thing together and just fixed it. Whether you like Thomas Castellanos or not, he got Thomas Castellanos in here and sold something to sell to the rest of the portal guys. Okay, we said as far as the staff, we wanted a mix. Like, it had to be, we had these heated debates. Is he only going to do 2 or 3 because we're going to be pissed? And I said it needs to be 4 or 5 guys. 4 or 5 guys. And we kind of agreed that would be perfect, but we didn't know if it's going to happen or not. It had to, we said we have to, as you mentioned, we need to get ties to recruiting in South Florida, specifically the Panhandle. We needed guys that were younger. It was just too many of the same people on the staff. And, Pat Surtain stuck out like a sore thumb because he was what's needed. It's not that you got to get rid of Papoose or Papuchis or Odell Higgins, but somebody needed to move. And the perfect solution there seemed like what? Make Odell an associate head coach and assistant coach where he can still coach the offensive line and not have to worry about these young kids and NIL and all that and be a mentor. And Mike Norvell got that done. Like, I don't know if Odell came to him with it or how it ended up working, but he got that done, and that was the best move. You get Pot Roast in here. You get another young guy in Evan Cooper. And then again, Tim Harris, people aren't the greatest on it. Say that's the weakest of all the hires. Like, if you're going to look at what you needed and where you needed the coaching and things of that nature, I think they still did a pretty damn good job on it. Herb Hand on the offensive line, Pot Roast and Herb Hand outside of the coordinators, like, those were the biggest hires because a lot of times we saw you get a coordinator and you don't get his ace on his staff, and all of a sudden the coordinator loses his magic. Like, we haven't seen Gus without Herb Hand, like, more than a year or two in the past 20 years. Like, they've always been together. Pot Roast was a big part of what that Nebraska defense did. So for them to come with those gifts, for Florida State to get them locked in time, to be really competing with these guys, we may not be competing for a top 5 portal class, but as far as our needs and what they're getting after, I can't complain. I really can't. I know some people hang on every single commit. Like, we'll argue, we'll discuss, should you went after Crazy Salter or should you went after Thomas Castellanos? But these guys, it's like every single guy that hits is like, oh, Luke goes, it's the end of the world. This guy goes, it's the end of the world. And if this guy gets committed, it's like, man, you can't sign every guy. And are you not looking around the country? The backups are leaving from Georgia. They're leaving from, it's a sieve from the playoff teams. SMU's had like 4 or 5 guys hit. Texas has had guys hit and then come back and then, hit again. It's like, I know everybody wants everybody. You can't get everybody, but we can get a damn good class. I haven't done the numbers. I'm not sure exactly how many holes we have to fill, but I know at least 5 to 10 personal or preferred walk-ons have left now that rule's changed. Xavier Perkins committed to Florida A&M today, which is pretty cool. Good for him. But yeah, I'm not sure. 10, 15. Do you have any idea, or have you even looked at that? How many think they might end up signing before it's all over with?
No, I haven't looked at it just yet. I don't think I was speaking add on is just say that everything isn't necessarily done. That's even with the staff and support staff hires. All of those things are not done. What we're seeing is exactly what you said, George. It's just the initial and important staff with the coordinators and key position coaches. But getting back into what you said about the players and walk-ons in the room, we're going to 105 players who are all on scholarship now. There's no more walk-on. So what you're doing is this is where you're going to start to see what coaches are smart enough to be able to stockpile hidden gems in those roles that they can develop, and that will be patient enough to be developed. Some guys will come in and be just, your practice squad, sort of like the NFL. I mean, your 105 scholarships now basically becomes, this thing is totally turning into the pro model, where you're going to have your walk-ons, where once your walk-ons are going to be more like your practice squad, but except you can move them up just like the practice squad, but as you continue to develop, because practice squad is mostly guys who went undrafted, but developmental type guys, and they can fill roles for injuries and things like that. That's basically what this model is going to, by allowing those walk-ons to become scholarship athletes. And it's a positive. If it's a full ride, then, that walk-on thing is now no longer an issue for certain athletes who do walk on. They can hold on to their, actually have a legitimate scholarship and don't have to pay for school.
And I think it's just going to naturally, kind of spread out, kind of like the initial portals help, like get all the third string NFL players off of Alabama and Georgia's rosters. I think, Clemson and Florida State will just end up having 105 scholarship guys, like you said, some less, but you'll probably just see that bottom 30, like, okay, I tried it. I got a scholarship. It was the 105th one at Florida State, but I'm obviously not hitting the field, so they'll transfer somewhere lesser. And, well, they've got a year of development at Florida State, to your point. Like, so even though you're technically a scholarship guy, to Deshawn's point, that could still be a kind of, developmental preferred walk-on role. Helps Florida State, and helps the player. So, yeah, it'll be fluid. But, yeah, it's going to be real fun to see in a couple of years how this plays out with having the early signing day and this early portal period while everybody's preparing for the playoffs. But I appreciate it for Florida State's situation this year.
Yeah.
That's for damn sure. Is there anything we haven't got to yet? Right off the top of my head. I know I'm forgetting something. We talked
Devin. We talked Herb. We've discussed a little bit on Tim. Cooper we mentioned. I would ask you a question. The situation at quarterback coach, the position coach, what is your ideal or your ideas or what's your thoughts on Tokar's long term? Just honest truth.
I think I'm going to give him the next 2 years with an offensive line to see. But it's really tough at this point to grade him. He was part of Jordan Travis's rise and all that. And then what we have with him, kind of by himself suffering was last year. Mm-hmm. So, there's so many things along that it's so hard to judge. You know what I mean? It's like we saw the shortcomings with Dugans and Atkins and a lot of these guys, the cracks starting to show the previous couple years before. Tokar's has kind of been a star. And even the kind of practice, the rumors of when he was coaching the practice squad quarterbacks and then, doing all kind of things and giving defenses hell and all that stuff. We'll have to see. Is he Alex Atkins? 2.0, where we thought he was going to be the next big thing, and it doesn't kind of work out. We're going to have to see. I heard so early on that kind of like with the Papucci's that like he was one of the guys that was going to stay. I just kind of got over it. I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling on it because it's hard for me to blame any quarterback for last year, just with how everything went. Like, I don't know. How strong do you feel on it?
For me, man, I'm kind of somewhat like you, but I'm kind of teetering more of the it ain't it kind of situation. But I'm also open-minded. Hey, he's not going anywhere as far as I know right now. His development, what is the proof? Jordan, you give that credit to Dilly, Mike, and some of another coach, Denny Thompson, I believe, worked with Jordan too. And who's a developer outside of the program.
He definitely worked with Luke.
Yeah, he worked with Luke. He's worked with Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson. Yeah, but Tramel also. Yeah, that's another prospect. But as far as Tokars, you look at let's just look at our track record of quarterback. You got Luke hit the portal. He was the highest rated quarterback under the Mike Novell era. You had AJ Duffy. You've had Brock Glenn. You've had Chuba Purdy. The list goes on, and just listed. Not all of those on Tony, but just overall, somebody has
to guys that couldn't get beat out Jordan Travis, and then we saw when we finally got the chance to see, they bring a guy that he has, spent no time with or whatever, and the offensive line doesn't block. I agree. It's like, what are you pointing at? What is it that makes him so great? That puts him on this trajectory.
Exactly.
It's hard to point at. It's for sure.
Well, I would
this year, how much will he be an effect on Thomas Castellanos? I don't know.
Yeah, you hope positive or negative. Gus said he's taking his hands off of that area. He's going to coordinate, but he's going to have to work directly with Tony, with expectation of what he wants Castellanos to do within the offense. So it's going to go hand in hand along, excuse the pun, with hand, and how they do this thing. But as I stated before, the biggest thing is the terminology may be slightly different, but like stems, things like that with the wide receivers, it's not going to be a huge transition for the staff. As far as Castellanos, there will be some familiarity, and his athleticism should be able to take over if they play to his strength. I think that's what Gus is going to do. Play to the strengths of his game. Somewhat of what we said last year, but with the actual ability to run the ball and the actual ability to throw the ball down the field. Not saying Castellanos has a super strong arm. He has a strong enough arm. It's just accuracy at times is a big question for him. But if you're keeping the defense guessing with how you decide to run the ball within Gus's offense, whether you're running it north-south or vertical, east-west with sweeps and jets to keep them off balance, then you hit them with play action. And Gus is real famous for the Wildcat and a lot of his concepts in the run game, power run game. It's not finesse. That's the one thing about Gus's offense. The running game is going to be power. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be nasty, and that's what you need. So you got to it starts up front.
We never achieved that identity. We never committed to the run. We'd have success running balls, running the ball game early, and then we'd get one stuff, and then we just throw it for 3 straight drives. It's like, and part of that was just because they knew they couldn't score, and at some point they had to go for plays. But I don't think you'll see that with Gus. To your point, it's going to be about running the ball. Even if you got to take lumps early, that shit shows up at the end of the game. You obviously have to have a good enough defense to withstand it, but it's not like we were converting. That's what drove me nuts. It's not like we were converting throwing the ball. We're throwing picks and giving up crazy field position. There's so many of them drives that I'm like, just hand it to Feely. But we're not going to fall back into that trap again of talking about that. I think those days are over. And to your point about Gus's offense, it was a long time ago, but you think about what he did with the DV converted, like those RPOs and things, like you're faking that power run, and you got a guy like Thomas Castellanos that can fly towards the line of scrimmage, and then before offensive linemen get downfield, all these corners and linebackers, they got to make a decision. Are we going to go tackle him, or are we going to cover this wide receiver and this tight end? And like that's how you have busted plays, and you're you're throwing it to wide open guys. Hopefully we see a lot of that in one-on-one coverage, and things like that. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I think when you saw the crystal ball start to roll in, you hope you get a couple of these in the next couple of days. It was pretty nice to get them to pop, both of them, before the show.
Yeah. I see in the chat, they're saying that my mic is a little off. It's hard to hear me. I know you can probably hear me, but if our listeners can hear me a little better, does it sound like I'm still in a tunnel? If so, I'll have to make that correction later. But I appreciate it, Daniel Gorby. I appreciate you for letting me know that. I'll get that fixed.
We're going to take this thing to a next level after Santa Claus comes through, but we appreciate everybody sticking there. I know I don't have the best audio in the world, but ups and downs with microphones and things of that nature. But again, it's all about Florida State football and the fun time right now. After a tough season, it's fun to see some things kind of go as expected and go the right way. And yeah, I think this is a pretty short episode, but I think we covered it all pretty well. Anything else before we close out? Thought we might have some friends drop in. I don't know if they had an issue with the link or not or what. But
I don't know either. I saw it in the group chat because I shared it also. Steve said he was going to come in. I don't know. He's so busy. He may have had something to be able to jump in, not be able to jump in directly. He didn't know that we were starting. Then, of course, when I saw your chat, your message, it was kind of like 6:30 or so.
Yeah.
It kind of threw some.
Let folks know at least where they can find the Daily Chop and what y'all got going on over there, so they can go get y'all's take on everything. I know y'all got what y'all got to show tomorrow, right?
No, Thursday night. We're gonna do Thursday night. Yeah, Thursdays either at noon or at primetime night, 8 or 9 o'clock. We're gonna do Thursday most likely between 8:30 and 9. Also look for me on Double D's Let's Talk Ball podcast, and check out my boy D at D's Corner, DSCORNER. But make sure my choppers tap in with TDC, the Daily Chop. Shout out to everybody. I appreciate you too, George, for always being supportive, man. Definitely big 3-6. Also, the media group. Appreciate everything. Everybody, Sporadics, everybody who supports. We really do.
Yeah, man. Look, I've had it's been going on 3 years for me now doing this, 2 years with the podcast, and everybody was super gracious with me. You mentioned it, Spirit Addicts, STEM Media Group, all the different people. So yeah, I want to talk ball, even if I don't disagree with somebody or you got a bone to pick, guys, like, I won't say their names, but there's several 3 or 4 different podcast people that I used to invite on all the time, and all of a sudden, like, we don't agree on something, and they start talking crap, and they won't return your messages, and all of a sudden you're enemy. It's like, whatever. Like, we disagree. That's good content. Why can't we disagree and be friends? And me and you have disagreed plenty, especially off air. We've had some pretty colorful conversations, but it's fun, when you can. Yeah. How are you going to ever learn if you don't ever disagree with somebody and, go back and forth with them, So anyways.
Everybody who's like-minded, you become a hive. And a hive is nothing but a bunch of drones, and they're mindless, is what they would call sheep. If you don't have opposition to your thought process, you're never going to learn anything or grow. Even if you disagree, we can agree to disagree and continue on, but continue with a professional and a trusting, conversation and relationship. Be cool. I'm cool. Sometimes we do have differences, definitely.
That's it. Well, guys, we appreciate you. Make sure you can follow the Daily Chop, Double D's, Pro Football Talk, all that good stuff. Make sure you like and subscribe here. We really appreciate it. We're closing in on 3,000 subscribers, which would be a huge milestone for me. And not just me, but myself, Jen, Santi, Tiny Hat, who just hit the chat telling the Elite Lies. He's talking about 10 wins. Hey, baby, if we hit 10 wins next year, we are going to be just crazy. We're going to be going nuts on this. It's going to be the most fun 10-win season in the history of 10-win seasons. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a couple more commits between now and tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got Jordan Silversmith coming in here at the same time, 7 Eastern. He's a staff writer over at Tomahawk Nation. So we'll get into the latest portal developments and get his opinions on a lot of the stuff we talk about. Friday we've got the OG Rob DeLoach coming in here. So that'll be another fun one. We're going to start picking this up and, have a lot more guests and have a lot more fun with this now that there's a lot more positive stuff to talk about and just constructive conversations besides raining down the misery that was this season. So, anyways, go Knowles. I'll leave you with that little intro we did with the James Williams highlight, and we'll call it a day.
All right. Go Knowles.
I want you to put the word out there that we back up. Understand me? We back up. Understand me? We back up.
Well, if y'all want to keep going, oh, he disappeared. Damn, he's playing tricks on me. Where'd he go?
Steve was in here?
Steve had popped up right as I hit the intro. I was going to let him get a little beat. We still got 200-something people. There he is.
Okay.
You don't care about, hey, I'll make myself look
Hey, there you go.
What's up, Steve?
What's going on,
What's
guys?
going on? All right, man.
Just came to say what's up to you guys. George, how you doing? I'm gonna wipe my feet. Deshawn, how you
Hey,
doing,
man, we in here. We went through the whole litany of all the targets and coaching staff moves and all that. Popped up to the space, talked to you guys the other day. If you don't know Steve, make sure you go check him out on the Daily Chop like we were talking about. He's always on the field at different games, taking footage. He does a bunch of different cool shit. But we appreciate you joining us. I'll just let you take off. What's your take on the commits? And is there anything, any inside info you got to share? Anything you want to get off? Now's the time, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Lee Hunter is the only one that I really was excited to probably get, and then he went over here and took that Adidas bag over at Texas Tech, and I understand the nature of business. But so far, so good. We were talking about it before. Deshawn and I have talked ad nauseum about it. It seems to me that they've really listened to what their weaknesses are as a staff, as an organization, as a program, and they're attacking them piece by piece. So some people want to be negative, but those are the same people that were negative, 13 months ago when we were 13-0. So I'm happy with what's going on. James Williams is one I'm super excited about. I think once we have the playoff games over, we'll see what this roster shakes out to be, considering the portal will continue to have some action. But strength and conditioning is my whole thing, man. I'm sorry. We can have the pieces, but I want to see what they're going to look like in April when we all are watching that spring game.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, Steve, to be honest with you, man, I'm actually looking and hoping that the format for the spring showcase will be different too. Just change up everything, that you get more, that we'll be able to see a little bit more of what to expect, instead of it just being some little couple of plays here and there. I understand that portion of it, but okay, we're expecting to see, like you said, strength and conditioning. So we want to see a little bit more physicality, not to the point where everybody's getting hurt, but you would like to see a little bit more knocking around, instead of just a lot of the thudding and love tackling. For me also, I'll be looking forward. I mentioned to you, Steve, about the practice film. Once those practice pics and film is released, if we see a lot of the same habits or same practice habits that we saw on camera, we know there's a lot of things that's off camera. Then we know, okay, it wasn't necessarily those position coaches. It may be the head guy. So I'm going to be looking for that. Those are some key things that I'm looking for going into. Maybe also tour duty. You're hoping that they switch some things up. You're not just looking for cardio, but you're looking for actual, flexibility with power, especially from your trench type players. That's what I'm looking at this year.
Well, one question I guess I got for you guys, I know there's a lot of people on Twitter, and again, we won't mention names of people that have had falling outs and stuff, but there's certain insiders that act like, oh, well, my kid's in this thing, so I know a couple high school coaches, I know everything, all this stuff. They need to put me on staff, yada yada, poo-poo in the program and stuff. But it is a valid point that we talked about earlier. The relationships in Florida, these guys that have been, a part of this thing, they're younger guys that have played around the NFL. What is the word on the streets? Because I know you guys do, know a lot of contacts in the youth football, high school football ranks and stuff like that. Is the attitude from people out there about what Florida State staff has done, are they excited about it as I am? Is there really a wave out there that, hey, maybe they can get this thing together and 26 could be something special if they can put things together?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think aiming for 26, making a run was always the plan. Obviously, last year, the way it shaked out wasn't the plan. And the crazy thing about it is we talk about the coaches getting fired and the situation, the season being what it was. Had this staff maybe gone 8-4, 9-3, we probably would have brought some of the same stale coaches on staff. So sometimes you got to destroy and rebuild, right? You got to salt the earth so nothing ever grows on it again, and rebuild it from the jump. So for me, I think had we had gone maybe, I don't know, 9-3, 10-2, we probably still would have kept a lot of those players, particularly here in Georgia where I'm at. They like what the program represents, but they couldn't justify, you know, giving up more money, um, and possibly better coaching to go into a 2-10 team with
Yeah.
the current staff. I wish some of those kids would have waited. That's all comes down to the timing of it all. I wish some of this stuff would have happened during the season, but I understand the logistics of coaches moving when they want to move and the financials that happen behind the scenes. But I think the coaches are excited. I mean, the kids are excited from what I'm hearing in Georgia. To be honest, anyway, 26 and 27 are stronger classes from top to bottom than 2025 is. So
Yeah.
you have the ability to go ahead and say, hey, we made a mistake and we fixed it. And here's proof of concept.
Yeah.
Hey, a lot of people make jokes about like our kids in school getting dumber and dumber year by year. Maybe we'll have less of these guys reclassifying down 2 grades coming into college at 16 years old. I think that'll strengthen. I think it's just from all the transfers, now you can go straight to the NBA. Now you can go straight to the MLB. It's like kind of trickled down everywhere. And then less contact in high school. It's just, I'm being an old man right now, but that's why Alabama until Saban left. That's why, the guys in Michigan, even though they're bad this year, they're still physical, like that old school kind of getting in there. I see people talking about the physical practices. I don't ever want to see, I don't care if it's a warm up, if it's for nothing, because half the players will tell you, oh, it don't mean nothing. But like, you are what you do every day. It's like they're just out there practicing to suck, like to not wrap up, to bounce off, to get juked out of their shoes. Like, if you're going to do whatever that patty cake drill was, like, don't let Warchant film it or whatever the case may be. Like, let's get some kind of, because you see when Bama puts out stuff, it's like, oh shit, it's some kind of Oklahoma thing. Even if they're not going to the ground, it's something physical. So yeah, I don't know if it's the strength and conditioning, which is certainly up to, criticism, as you pointed out, as Deshawn has pointed out for months. I don't know if it was just, you just didn't have, the clay that year, whatever the case may be, but, the penultimate, thing on this staff, on Mike Norvell, on everybody's going to be this year. They got this year to figure it out, because that football only facility is quickly getting finished. The stadium is quickly getting finished. So it's like, it's either about to be all on Mike Norvell and we're all in for this climb, or who knows, we're going after Urban Meyer or somebody in 2026. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know about Urban, but I guarantee one thing: if it was Urban, we're gonna get results. At least for a few years. We may not like what it leaves us with, but then we're gonna come away with at least 1 or 2 of them things. So
if this thing blows up, FSU fans will be ready to sell their souls. At
that point, it'll be a desperation type thing, George. But I won't be negative about it. I look at it and say, okay, like Steve said, Mike is trying to address what has been stated by those of us who understand exactly what it is. And as I had shared, Steve, if you hadn't watched earlier, I was saying, if you pay attention to what they're doing, not just who they're getting, it's about a seamless transition, because you can't wait to 26. You got to have a seamless type transition. So you're getting guys that fit, understand the terminology already, can already perform within the system, and get guys that are going to be able to contribute immediately instead of a lot of late, mid-season development. You're getting a quarterback. Okay, one thing we know he can do is run. So the quarterback run game is there. Gus is going to have that. Gus has been able to win 6-7 games with a quarterback that couldn't damn throw the football. He's managed to do it. He's beaten Auburn with Alabama with average quarterbacks. So I think that's the philosophy. Like I said, run the ball, play defense. That's the oldest philosophy in football. Run the ball, stop the run. And I think that's the goal. Tony White, we run a 3-3-5, but if you look at his rush defenses, they've always been superb, or for the levels he's been on. So with the kind of talent that he can get from being in this area in the Tallahassee, North Florida, South Georgia, South Florida, getting that kind of talent, he's never had access. That's what Tony White has. He has access to the type of recruits he couldn't get at Syracuse. He couldn't get at Nebraska. And that's the same with Gus. Even though Gus has gotten kids at Auburn, yeah, he's gotten kids at UCF, yeah, and he's had some solid recruiting class, some of the best classes UCF has ever had. But the access he's going to be able to get with FSU's logo is different. It's particularly when he walks into the same high schools that he probably walked into with a UCF shirt on. It's going to be different now. Yeah, that 2-10 stings, but the logo still matters.
Yeah. Especially if you can win some games next year. And next year's schedule is pretty manageable. You start up with Alabama, but as long as you don't have a crazy falling off, there isn't a Memphis and an SMU waiting in the lurch for you. You get Kent State and I forget Stanford or something. Like you really, it's about as easy as the ACC schedule is going to ever be next year. So if they can get that 7 or 8 wins, they could really sell something. But if not, yeah, it'll be crazy. But yeah, I'm trying not to lie. I'm trying not to get too excited. But when you start to put it all together, we'll see how this offensive line finishes out. We started out hot with the offensive tackle. If we can get 2 out of the 3 of, Kittler and Addison Nichols and Marcellus Marshall, I'll be ready to start telling all the lies. Oh, also Adrian Medley. Keep forgetting about him. That's the one that looks like he's going to be coming for sure. So any particular players or anything on your mind before we get out of here? Me and Deshawn have been going at it. We kind of hit a roadblock there when you showed up at the last second, but the floor is yours for sure.
You got it, Steve.
Yes, sorry about that, guys. I have doing the U.S. Army All-American game, and then like I told Deshawn, I think as well, I gotta go 45 minutes. I gotta go do the Frisco Bowl. Memphis is playing West Virginia, so shout out to Memphis who embarrassed us at home this year. But no, man, I'm thankful you guys brought me on the show. I'm excited for any player that could contribute. I think next year, if the team is competent, even let's say 8-4, for example, I think that's going to be one of the more enjoyable 8-4 seasons you'll ever have in this program. This program has always been at the top of the list. Has always been a program that's held the standard of excellence, and we don't accept 8-4 seasons. But based on what we just came out of, if we're able to kind of push that off, I think we'll be able to tell some elite, top of the line lies in 2026. I wish some of the guys that have left were going to be a part of that, but it's all about the logo, anyways, man. I'm always going to be true to the logo. So, my only curiosity and concern is if you're going to be running the ball with your quarterback that much, and I think you'll be able to move the ball. One, if you're down 21 to a team either you're not supposed to be on the road or a team that is better than you, how do you come back? Can Castellanos go through his progressions and push the ball down the field enough to come back and win? And two, if you're going to run the ball with Castellanos as much, that also increases the risk of injury. What's the backup plan for that? Those are the only 2 questions I have. Hopefully, we obviously have all offseason to talk about it, guys.
Yeah, we've wondered for a while, like even before he signed, it's like even if they bring in somebody to start, good chance Luke's going to leave. And then do you bring in a younger guy, a redshirt freshman or, a true sophomore or something like that? It's tough to talk that guy into come be a backup for 2-10, like with everything together. But who knows? They might could sell somebody the message. I'd be down. That's what's such a shame about Luke leaving just to go to Mississippi State. It's like that would have been perfect to have him learning behind Castellanos. And like you said, if they could run him without, not worrying about anything if you'd had him here. But now, yeah, you worry about him going down. We don't know. We'd like to think this Kevin Speary kid is the next Baker Mayfield, but, true freshman coming in, you're just not going to hang your hat on that. So
I want to drop a nugget for you guys, too, man. I was at the state championship game in Atlanta yesterday. Burke County, which is pretty close to Tallahassee, was playing Bowden, defending 2-time state champ. They ended up winning the game. There's a top receiver down there, George Lamons, 2027. I think he's the 6th-ranked receiver in the country. Had FSU gloves on, man. I'm gonna love that. Considering 2-10, you got to be a pretty brave kid. George Lamons, man, number 6 ranked receiver in the country. He's got 30 offers already. Keep an eye on that kid, man. 6'3", about 2. I think he's weighting at 208. Kid played with a broken ankle. He had a cast on his ankle, and still scored a touchdown. So I like what I see. Keep an eye on that kid.
Okay.
And FSU staff, if you're watching, Caden Hall. He's a stud over here from Milton in the 2026 class. Y'all drug your feet on him. It's not going to be Surtain now because he's a safety. So we'll see if Evan Cooper likes him. I just want to see some of these Panhandle kids get over there. I know of all the staff, you're not going to question Pat Surtain, but shoot, I was hoping they get clarity. That didn't work out. So give my guy Caden Hall. I think he could be a stud for us. But yeah, you said you're down. So what are you doing? Some filming for the All-American Bowl?
Yeah, I'll be here all week. I have
Do we have anybody down there? I know we don't have a ton of high school guys, but do we have anybody in the game for this year?
I'm gonna go ahead and pick some brains and talk to the guys that are curious and they're still looking at Florida State. So that's kind of my whole thing. I am a bit bummed. One of the quarterbacks that I've been pushing for as of recent is a 2026 kid that I think would fit great in our offense because he's a true dual threat. He's about 6'5", 205. Grayson quarterback, 2026, Travis Burgess. He's playing in the state championship tomorrow against Julian Lewis, Juju. I wish I could be there, but I'm here. I'm actually going to be in LA tomorrow for the LA Bowl. Cal plays UNLV, so I'll be there tomorrow night. But Travis Burgess is a kid we need to pay attention to. James has already called me on the side about him. I believe James will be going down to Atlanta tomorrow, Big Game James, to check him out. And we got to find a way to get that kid on campus, man. He's 205, 6'5", but I mean, the kid's 16 years old. He's got plenty of frame to put weight on, and he's super athletic. If you watch the film, they run a spread RPO system, and he's got an electric arm, almost too electric for the receivers that he has. So
You
keep
said
an eye
he's
on that kid as well.
26?
2026, yes, sir.
Yeah, 2026.
So, I mean, Smeagol's already visited Washington. It's hard to imagine, with this whole change of offense. Do you think maybe they're not pushing after your guy, or do you think they'll recruit him even with Smeagol committed? Or do you think that'd be
George, I'm 35 years old. I'm faster than Smeagol right now in phone pockets. I really am.
Right,
I'm telling you,
man.
man, I joke around a lot. I'm telling you, I'm dead serious. So if I'm faster than you, I'm more fleet of foot. We can't have that kid run the offense, even though he's got a special arm. He is an older kid already. We have to make. We always look at some of these older kids, and we have to know, have they tapped out athletically? What's their ceiling? Have they reached it already? So if the kid flips, which I believe he will at this point, we wish him the best. But if we're going to be all in on this type of offense, we need to find the pieces to fit him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my guess. And you heard it here first. Travis Burgess, a name to watch. I'd be hard. I can't imagine Smeagol locking in. This is like one of these things. He's probably just staying committed so that when he does commit somewhere else, it'll be a flip type deal. If I had to guess, Thomas or anybody else who is kind of, what do you call that? A lame duck recruit? Like,
yeah, yeah.
Whatever.
The George Lemons guy you mentioned, Steve, before we get out of here. Yeah, I'm looking at it. He's already 6'4", 213 pounds, class of 2027. Currently ranked 20th nationally by 247. Number 3 athlete, number 4 prospect in the state of Georgia. And he does claim an offer from FSU already. I'm looking at his list, and he does say he claimed an offer from FSU. So he's already on the radar. That's big. Because I'm looking at those measurables, and he's class of 27. That's crazy, man. That means that he's listed as an athlete. He can grow. That his body isn't even done growing yet. So who knows where he goes? Man, I'm gonna have to look at his film though.
Yeah, he's down in Burke County. There's not a lot that comes out of there, but
yeah,
they were able to make the state championship game, and largely because of him. He's a dog.
Well, shoot, man, we appreciate you joining us. Do some recruiting for us. Like, man, I knew you would show up at the Florida State games and you do this and that. I didn't realize you holy shit, you're this bowl game, that bowl game. You freaking racking up them freaking flyer miles, man. So that's awesome.
I'm trying to be an omnipresent figure, man. Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Shout out to the wife. I'm sure she's probably not happy that she has to take care of all the kids while I'm doing all this fun stuff. But shout out to the wife. Outside of that, no, man, I'm always going to recruit for Florida State. Big fan of the show for you guys. Thank you guys for bringing me on.
Absolutely. And again, it's the Daily Chop right here. It's THA Daily Chop, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
The Daily Chop.
Daily Chop. That's right.
Make sure y'all go subscribe and check them guys out. They go live usually around lunchtime or prime time if they don't get it to it early. We're here Monday, 8:30 for the Renegade Roast. Every Tuesday and Friday, 7 Eastern for the Renegade Rundown. And tomorrow, again, Jordan Silversmith, the staff writer from Tomahawk Nation. We're going to have a special interview with him, 7 Eastern. Yeah, that's it. We're going to run this little intro that I put for James Williams again, and we're really going to call this one a day. Yeah, go Noles. Thank you for sticking with us.
I want you to put the word out there that we back up. Understand me? We back up. Understand me? We back up.